Nō mai, haere mai, welcome. I'm Bruce Munro, and with me is International Relations Specialist, Professor Robert Patman, and this is Global Insight. A state of emergency in New Caledonia has forced New Zealand's Foreign Minister, Winston Peters, to drop it from his whistle-stop Pacific Island tour this week. What is the future of this troubled French overseas territory? Welcome, Robert.
Right, Bruce, thank you.
First, I want to congratulate you on being awarded the 2024 Critic and Conscience of Society Award by Universities New Zealand Gamma Foundation. It's a national and prestigious accolade, and we here at Global Insight think that it's thoroughly deserved.
Well, thank you very much, Bruce. I think Global Insight may have played a part in swinging the judge's verdict, but thank you again. And I'm deeply conscious that working with fine people like yourself and Luke and others in the world of journalism, as well as academia, has made this possible. So I don't just see it as a personal achievement. I see it as an achievement of a lot of people I work with who've been extremely helpful and supportive.
Well, thank you for that, and again, congratulations. So, to the unrest in New Caledonia, a 12-day state of emergency has been declared following rioting and deaths in the capital, Nouméa. What is this all about?
Well, unrest has been simmering for some time, and it's related, I think the triggering event has been legislation that's been prepared by the government in France, which changes the terms of the Nouméa Accord, which was signed in 1998, which basically meant that people in the country before 98 could effectively vote in elections, including provincial elections. Now, the new legislation allows people who've more recently arrived in New Caledonia since 2014. If they'd arrived before 2014, they'd now be allowed to vote in provincial elections. And this has incensed and infuriated the indigenous Kanak people. They have been seeking independence since the Kanak Awakening, 1969. There's been a number of referendums, but unfortunately, under the Nouméa Accord, it envisaged referendums for independence. There's been a number of them in which they've been outpolled by the settlers. And the most recent one was held at the height of the COVID problem, which also infuriated the indigenous people. And it's not been easy. France says, in principle, has no problems with New Caledonia being independent. Having said that, France has encouraged and incentivized immigration to New Caledonia since the 1970s. Indeed, in the last decade and a half, something like 40,000 Europeans, largely from France, have settled. So I suppose the Kanak protests and the riots reflect the perception that they're being further and further marginalised by more and more people arriving and the voting rights being extended to them.
Right. What is France's global track record on decolonisation?
Well, just on the New Caledonian example, it has been a bit ambivalent. As I said before, they say they have no problem with New Caledonia seeking independence, but they've often acted in ways which has favoured the European settlers, particularly the French settlers. As I said, they've incentivised immigration there, which means that the Kanaks, which are about 40% of the population, perceive they are becoming increasingly outnumbered and unable to win any referendum. So, and there's another issue here, which France hasn't really addressed, and that is they have not sought to undo the grievances caused by the illegal expropriation of land by the colonial settlers. Now that's stopped, and the attempt is to try and reconcile the indigenous and the people and the settlers. But it's causing a lot of tension, and as far as I know, the Kanaks have not had serious redress to their land grievances. So there's, with regard to the French situation, there's no indication that they're actively encouraging independence by limiting immigration or telling the people who've settled there that it's only appropriate that indigenous people play a key role in developing New Caledonia. They're not saying that. So I suppose the record in New Caledonia has been a bit ambivalent. Now, to give the French perspective, they're saying that because 40,000 plus people have arrived in the period since the Noumea Accord of 1998, they're saying you can't withhold the franchise from them. This is they're saying if you adhere to democracy, you have to practice it. You can't simply say you can go and settle in Caledonia, but you can't vote. So that's their argument.
Right. And putting what's happening in New Caledonia in the broader context of French colonisation, decolonisation, what is that picture?
Well, hesitate is quite a big picture. And I'm not a specialist on French decolonisation, but what I would say, the experience of Algeria was sobering. Eventually France did leave, but it took quite a lot of bloodshed for that to happen. Their experience in Indochina, where the Viet Cong, led by Ho Chi Minh, the Vietnamese liberation movement, eventually after a bloody war which started in 1945 and went to about 1954, ended with the Battle of Bien Dinh Phu, that was enough for the French to decide they would have to disengage and leave. But it hasn't always been a willingness to leave. And of course there is a strategic concern here for France, because while it has a presence in New Caledonia, that adds substance to its claim that it's a Pacific power. So that there is a tension between responding to the desire for autonomy, indeed independence for indigenous people, but also its own strategic goals. And that's the New Caledonian situation. But the experience elsewhere, on the limited selection I've given you, does not seem to be one of active disengagement, but disengagement under pressure.
And Winston Peters has had to stay away for the moment. What role does New Zealand play, and what role can New Zealand play in situations like this?
Well, I think it's a tricky one for Winston Peters. He's on a 6-day trip in the Pacific. He's visiting a number of other countries, Solomons amongst them, and Papua New Guinea, Tuvalu, etc. So he wants to reassert New Zealand's Pacific identity. And to do that, he will probably have to develop a voice over this issue, because indigenous people in this country will be watching their counterparts, the Canucks in New Caledonia, and want to see whether we are simply going to side with the French position. So it is an issue that I can fully understand the reasons why the delegation did not go when it's very dangerous for all concerned, with 4 people dead. But I think it is an issue going forward, Bruce, when the delegation gets back to Wellington, that New Zealand may be required to begin to develop a voice on this issue. And I think in principle our position is that we certainly welcome the prospect of New Caledonia being independent. And the difficulty is, from the European settlers' point of view, is would an independent Caledonia, with a government led by the Canucks, the indigenous people, would it protect the property rights that the settlers now have as a result of settling there? So it's a very complex situation. The other challenge that, more broadly, with this whirlwind trip through the Pacific, another challenge that the foreign minister meets is not only, as I've said, asserting New Zealand's Pacific identity, which is part of his agenda, but he's also wrestling with another problem, which is reassuring, or trying to reassure, Pacific Island states that New Zealand's desire under this government for closer alignment with traditional partners will not mean that Pacific identity is being sacrificed. because there's no secret that New Zealand is exploring the option of joining AUKUS, which is, and let's be clear about this, this is a security arrangement which is designed to deter China, and it's designed to keep China or minimise China's influence in areas such as the Pacific Island states. So he has got a bit of there's a bit of a tension here between reasserting New Zealand's Pacific identity, but also responding to strategic anxieties about China's growing role in the region.
Thank you, Robert. And thank you for watching. Catch us next time on Global Insight. Te pono me te araha.